The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. That very day, the first day of the week, two of Jesus' disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus. And they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. Jesus asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleophas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor in Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place there in these days?" Jesus, then a stranger, replied to them, "What sort of things?" And they said, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, how our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since this took place. Now, some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came back and reported that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who announced that he was alive. Then some of those with us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see." And Jesus said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are! How slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke! Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and so enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on farther. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. But he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way to them, and how Jesus was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. The Gospel of the Lord. It was the 50th anniversary of the ordination of one of my Paulist brothers, and I was in San Francisco to celebrate with him last Sunday night. In the midst of our celebration, which at that point had gotten down to a pizza party, one of the priests in the house came into the dining room where we were gathered, and he said, "Osama bin Laden has been killed." We know that Osama bin Laden has been killed because there are witnesses to what happened. Those witnesses are people who belong to our military. They have no reason to lie. And beside that, there were too many of them to all be together in a lie. So we know, because we have witnesses to that event, that Osama bin Laden is dead. There were witnesses to the death of Jesus, and so we know that he died. There were also witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and so we know, because of those witnesses, that Jesus lives and lives forever. And so we are able to say on this Easter morn, because it is an extension of Easter, we are able to say again, and the church does, we are able to say, "Alleluia, the Lord is risen." And we know that because there were witnesses to that resurrection. In the book of Acts that we read today in our first reading, we hear St. Peter very early in the Acts of the Apostles preaching to a group of people, and he says to that group of people, "God raised this Jesus, and of this we are all witnesses." We are all witnesses. Now you say, "I didn't see Jesus raised from the dead." But we know that those who went before us did indeed see Jesus risen from the dead. We know that they were witnesses of the fact that he rose from the dead. And through these 2,000 years, many, many, many people, millions and millions of people, have witnessed by their lives that Jesus has risen from the dead. And so we are indeed witnesses of the fact that Jesus is risen, that he is indeed the Messiah, that he did indeed come to save every single one of us from our sins, and we have witnesses to that. That is why today's gospel story, which comes to us from St. Luke, is so important to us. Here are two men walking down a road, rather lengthy road, since it was 7 miles from Jerusalem to where they were going. Nevertheless, they're walking down the road, and St. Luke tells us they were all kind of depressed. They were really upset. They thought that Jesus was going to save them. They thought somehow that Jesus was going to push away all that Roman authority that was over their lives. They had missed the reality of what Jesus had come to do. And they meet this stranger. All they know is that he's not anybody they've ever met before. At least they can't recognize him. And Jesus speaks with them because they're kind of down. You know, gee, ain't what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? But that wasn't the point. So when Jesus spoke to them, he asked them about what they were concerned about. And so they told him. They said to him, the scriptures tell us, The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, that's what we're worried about, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. So they recognized that Jesus, by what he had done, was a very powerful human being, but they didn't understand what more Jesus was.